Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for being here. I would like to make a motion to reconvene the open session at 7:07 p.m. Can I get a second, please? Second by Member Ridley. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, perfect. Okay. All right. Tonight's meeting is being digitally recorded. Say hi to the camera. Good evening. Next, we have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Member Morrison.
Everyone please stand. Face the flag, hand over your hearts, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Announcement of actions taken in closed session, if any. There were no actions taken in closed session. Okay, now here's the fun part, best part of the evening. Our special presentations. Melissa and John Raines, would you like to help us introduce our 2016 Familia Festival Royal family?
All right. Thank you. My name is John Raines, my wife Melissa Raines. We're the general chairman of this year's Familia Festival. Thank you for inviting us here tonight. Appreciate you allowing the court to make an appearance. I would introduce this year's banner carriers and roll court for the Familia Festival. We have banner carriers Maxine Ho and Russell Muro. Banner carriers Robbie Fuentes and Aaron Wong. Princess Brooklyn Pereno and Prince Presley Wong. Princess Mia Oberlander and Prince Tyler Womack. And Queen Zoe Grimaldi and King Emerson Perez. So these children were selected at our play day on January 9th. All the children are in first grade and live in Temple City or the Temple City Unified School District. These children were judged on how they got along with others, how they followed directions, and they even had a chance to answer questions speaking into a microphone. As part of their royal court duties, they make various appearances, such as the one here tonight. They also get to open the parade or the carnival this Friday, and of course ride down Los Tunas Drive in the parade on Saturday starting at 10 o'clock in the morning. Like to introduce some of our committee that are here tonight on the Familia Festival. We have Royalty Chairman and Governess Ann Seitz. Festival Director Don Tarrin. We have Parade Program and Photographer Jerry Jambazian. And Assistant General Chairman and Assistant Governess Gina Aparicio. We have to recognize the parents of these beautiful children for taking the time to get them to these appearances and getting them dressed up and looking so nice. Parents, give a little wave. And your very own Larry Marston, who came to our ice cream social. You got to get to know the kids, saw them draw the pictures that you'll see in the program. Thank you, Larry, for showing up that day and getting to know the kids a little bit.
You serve great ice cream.
Now, do you have any questions for the children?
Does anyone have questions, comments? Member Conroy.
So what's been the best event you've been to so far?
I was just joking. Very good, very good. Anybody else? Any comments? More wishes? Well,
So we like to try to educate the children
uh
a little bit. So if you can just explain in the simplest of terms what the school board does, the children can kind of get an understanding of what you do here.
Oh, absolutely. I would be glad to do that. My name is Vincent Bell, and we'll once upon a time, I was about your age. Seems unbelievable, but it's true. I graduated from the schools here at the high school, and I am now a member of a 5-member school board. What we do as a school board is we set policies and guide the district for you guys. So you can take the classes that will mean something to you someday, hopefully. But more importantly, classes that you guys would actually like. How about that, right? Yeah. And I heard through your world tour that some of you have mentioned that you have an interest in becoming certain and going into certain kind of careers. And that's awesome to hear from a group that is, most of you are 7 years old, is that about right? 7, 6? Yeah. So again, this is what we do. We meet about once or twice a month. We talk about how things are going at the schools, how you and your peers are doing in your classrooms, and we go back and we discuss, and we try and figure out what type of programs and services we can provide to you guys. And that is about the simplest way that I think we can put this. So, but you are the reason we are here. This is something that I want all of you to know. And we are here to support you guys and to make sure that you guys have a great future someday. So, how many places have we been to? How many appearances have we had?
8 or 9?
8 or 9.
Ms. Guarini, have they improved since the last time you saw them?
They were here for PTA and last week, right?
Yeah.
And I said, oh, this is good practice, a good trial run. I noticed that they're just relaxed and you guys look great.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Professionals. Shall we take a picture with them at some point down the road?
Sure.
Yeah. Does anybody have any other questions or comments? Member?
One, I think you all look very handsome and beautiful. Also, some of you may not be in our school district, but for all of you that are in our school district, I think you probably have about 11 more years of being in our school district. We would welcome, you are important citizens now that you've been on the royal court. We would welcome you bringing suggestions and ideas back to us as you grow up and have ideas of how to make our schools better. So that would be a big help to us. Thank you very much.
That is an excellent point. Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much for coming this evening. We really appreciate your time. Gentlemen, Kelly, and ladies.
And thank you for allowing us to come tonight. Don't forget, the weekend starts Friday.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of entertainment. I highlighted my Saturday night, the long run at 8 o'clock at Eagles Tribute Band.
Oh, so everything goes 100 miles per hour from there.
Yeah.
You guys can turn around and say it.
Look, John and Melissa, we want to thank you for coming tonight with all the students. We have just some little gifts for them.
Oh.
Sure.
Have you taken pictures yet? Yeah, I'll hold this for you. Okay, look at Mr. Giandazian, who's taking the pictures.
All right, let's see here.
Russell, take your hands out of your pocket.
And okay, lift your arm, keep your partner. Partner. Very nice.
We don't have to link, do it.
Emerson.
Smile.
There you go.
Say carnival.
one's banner carrier. It must be you. I don't know, do I have anything left? Do I have any parentheses left? And let's see, yes, Russell, that's you. Thank you guys. What do you say?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Our pleasure, thank you for coming. We'll be yelling for you on Saturday. Loud.
Ever since the day we left Nathan out.
Keep those arms linked, that looks fabulous.
Very good.
All right, see you Saturday. Thank you, parents.
Thank you very much. Yes, everything is downhill from here, everything.
Okay, I will bring you back tomorrow.
I will see you too. They'll be there.
All right, see you guys.
I'm curious what it's about.
Yeah.
Good night. Think about you. Bye. Have a good night.
Years, right? This is the 72nd year, is it not? This year, 72nd. There were 72 of these groups at some point. I want to see that history there. Yeah, what happened? Okay.
Oh, sorry, Bob.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, I interrupted your creative.
And there's no
Yes.
date on the, what's the?
Founders Day tomorrow.
Because I kind of ruined that. Yeah, that's my fault. Okay, all right, moving on. Do we have any public comment on agendized and non-agendized items?
We do not.
We do not. Good. Okay. All right, next, we'll move on to updates on district issues. First up, business services, Ms. Sorrell.
Good evening. Just a quick update on the bond project at the high school. The DTSD will be giving us the no further action letter. It's coming. We don't have it yet. However, construction was able to move forward as of February 23. Grading and over excavation are in progress, and in the next couple of weeks, the footings will begin to be dug.
That's exciting, honestly. It is. Awesome. All right. Okay, well, thank you very much for that update. Next up, we have educational services, Dr. Fascine.
Yes, thank you. As we continue our research on STEAM and STEM initiatives such as CTE pathways, educational services arranged for 3 different visitations over the past few weeks. And so last Friday, we had the pleasure of taking a small team to visit the STEAM Academy of Hollywood that offers Project Lead the Way. And we also had a group visit a middle school in Orange County focused on Paxton Patterson, which has curriculum stemming from robotics, coding to forensic science. And then we also went down to San Diego with the team, and we looked at Code to the Future at the elementary level. So we are conducting our research, we're going to debrief on what our next steps will be as a district. In addition to that, this weekend's a big weekend for Odyssey of the Mind and Science Olympiad competitions. And so we wish our students well this weekend. And then it's the last chance to donate $20 to the Temple City Schools Foundation in honor of February the Sweetheart campaign. And each site has a box, and even the district has a box should you wish to drop in a check and donate. And then last but not least, we have been working with an outside organization on developing this year's LCAP survey for our community, our parents, and our students. And that should be coming out in March. And so we'll keep you posted on that. It'll be electronic in 3 different languages, English, Mandarin, and Spanish.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Those are all are very exciting things that we're doing here as a district, and I want to thank everybody in educational services for the incredible focus and hard work that you folks put in day out on behalf of our kids. And excited, can't wait to hear back with more updates down the road. All right, next up is personnel services, Mr. Kuna.
Well, it's not personnel related, but I was able to take part in one of those visits to the STEM Academy of Hollywood. was a good morning, and I just appreciate Mr. Bell setting that contact up for us. It was interesting and good to see.
All right, okay, well, thank you very much, appreciate that. Next, we have bargaining unit comments. Temple City Education Association, Ms. Moore. All right, well, good evening, how are you? And next up is CSEA 105, Ms. Penn. No, okay. Next is CSEA 823, Mr. Niles. Okay, all right. We'll move on to our student board member comments. Ms. Bailey Wise.
Thank you. Sorry, bear with me. I'm kind of battling a little bit of a cold, so I'm going to try to get through this. Okay. So this week at the high school has been super, super busy. We just wrapped up our Pennies for Patients drive, so we placed boxes in each of the classrooms, and we had donations for the past week. We haven't announced the winners or the total amount collected yet, but that will be determined very, very soon. And the winner gets a party hosted by Olive Garden. And this week in ASB, it's a really big week because it's election week for president, vice president, class presidents, and student board member. Very sad.
Wow.
There's 4 people trying out for my position this year, and they're all very, very qualified. There's 1 sophomore and 3 juniors who are trying out. So elections run the rest of this week, and the winner will be announced, I believe, next week or the week following. And then last night, ASB helped out with freshman orientation. So the 8th graders from Oak came over to the high school and got to meet some of the counselors, and it was a good way for them to be introduced to the high school. And to go off of that, ASB is visiting Oak next week for their for a tutorial or a run over of all the different electives that they can choose, the different things that they can pick for their schedule next year. So we're going to be visiting their silent reading classes, and we're going to be representing a bunch of different groups: ASB, cheer, computer science, art, basically anything under the sun at the high school. We're representing that, and so that's going on next week. And our high school, we actually hosted our very first electives fair yesterday at the high school. So we set up, each of the different groups set up tables in the quad, and people were able to gather information and kind of see a little bit of what each of the different classes do. So Woods came out and they showed what they do. Engineering Design Tech had their 3D printer out there, so that was really awesome. I've never personally seen that, so that was really cool, and that was a first for me. And last night I had the privilege of attending the Mayor's State of the City address, and that was very informative. And I went on behalf of Youth Committee, but I think it was also very beneficial for me to go just as like a student, because a lot of times like you don't know what's going on in the city, and so I know a lot of people who aren't in Youth Committee or aren't as involved in the city as I am, but they thought it was very informative and very good to know about a lot of stuff that's going on. And lastly, ASB is in full swing for Camellia Festival, which is this weekend. We are hard at work working on the float for the Royal Court, and Friday's going to be a late night, so we're going to be making that. And we have a green costume booth this weekend, and we also started construction on the baseball and the softball fields this week, which is great.
All right.
They leveled out the fields, and it looks awesome. And we actually have a game tomorrow against Maranatha, so it'll be good. The grass is not yet grown in yet, but the field is very flat, and it's very nice to play on. And I was actually just telling Mr. Pomeroy that our girls water polo team actually made it to the CAF finals, and their game is this Saturday. So that's very, very exciting. So I'm going to definitely make my way over there. I don't know where it is, but I'm going to find out.
12 to 6 today.
12 to 6, yeah.
12 to 6 today.
Awesome. I'm so proud of
Yeah,
them.
that's great. That's great. Thank you very much, Bailey. Wow, that's a lot of stuff.
Sorry, there's a lot going on.
Hey, no, this is all great stuff. The way the high school and middle school crosses over and kind of helps in transitions. The new high school freshmen, that's fantastic. The elective sphere, as you call it, I think that's also great. It gives the student body an opportunity to see what some of these electives are, and who knows, it could pique some interest and whatnot. that, so that's great. And, yeah, I wish yeah, that's awesome, that's great, thank you so much, a lot of stuff. All right, let's move on to, board member comments. Member Pomeroy.
Okay. Well, it's very exciting about the water polo team. Hope to try to get to the game Saturday. I've had a somewhat, middling record this year. I try to get to watch all the sports teams. I saw all the varsity and junior varsity soccer teams this season. I saw the men's basketball team, and I attended the men's basketball playoff game at home, which was exciting. So that was a great win over Simi Valley. A friend of mine at work is from Simi Valley, so I got to rub it in his face. And exciting, obviously, to have the court here, and for all of them, they're not here anymore, but, you know, obviously we thank all of them for all the work that they do, the volunteers, and this weekend is certainly one of the highlights for us, and look forward to being out there and talking about our schools, and most importantly, hearing about our schools and learning about, what people like and what they want to tell us about, which is always, it's always helpful for me personally. And the planning for next year, it's amazing to me that it's happening already, and I'm impressed with the electives fair. I had not heard of that. I'm glad that's being done at the high school, and I know there are certain classes people are signing up for, or trying out for, or taking exams for. So that's coming, but and Bailey, thank you as you're finishing up your time at the high school for helping with all the reaching out to the incoming 9th graders and all the other things you're doing. You have a lot on your plate. Let's see, finally, in the elementary music, there's a concert next week, and Mr. Meyer asked if I would come and help tune his instruments, which I've done a couple times before, because we've got a lot of kids, and there's a lot of violins, it's a lot of E strings and other things. So I'm looking forward to that. That's Tuesday night, 7 o'clock at Oak. Mr. Meyer and all the other music teachers are very inspiring to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, let's go. Member Nolbert?
Just a couple of quick ones. Last couple of weeks, we had a meeting with the city, Mr. Larson and myself, and the city manager and superintendent, along with the business office. And basically, they went over Longman's contribution to give us a little map showing where they put the stop signs and the different signs up, so that it helped with the traffic flow. And it's still what we would probably consider a work in progress. They're still looking for comments, additional information of any way that we can improve the flow of traffic and make it easier for our students to be able to get to school and get home from school, and so that the flow of traffic is not impaired. The other issue to discuss was Mary Ann gave an overview of the status of our construction, general things. And this meeting is a standing committee, so it's open to the public. The next meeting is going to be March 17th at 3 p.m. over at the City Hall. Yeah, so if you want to come in and listen, you can. It's open to the public. The other thing that yesterday, once again, Mr. Morrison and myself and our student, as we attended the State of the City, and they made some comments about our joint use of the old gym. Showed some slides of that. And one of the interesting things is that the city said that they managed to increase their reserves by $2 million last year, which was kind of nice to see that they actually made a profit. And some of the things that are coming up, those are the things that happened in the last couple of weeks. Things that are coming up is tomorrow there is a comedy sports presentation at the high school. Thursday. And unfortunately there's a conflict with so many different things, but there's one of them. The other one is the Founders Day is at the same time as the comedy sports, which is unique again. Then on Friday the 26th, The Carnival Festival starts at from 4 to 10 p.m. So you can already see that the traffic's been blocked off from Golden West to Kaufman. And you can see that we're using the parking lot once again as a place to be able to put the trucks and some of the carnival stuff. Then Saturday we have the parade itself, but before the parade we have a pancake breakfast for those who want to get up at what, 7 o'clock in the morning? And you can buy tickets at the facility, and it is, you remember the street, Cloverly, and just above Lost Students. And it is worthwhile because it helps with the Kiwanis Club. And then on March 8th, which is Tuesday, we have a special board meeting to talk about other post-employment benefits, which is the OPEB, and is open to the general public as far as I can see. So anybody that has an interest in that, hopefully will come. It is a general discussion, it's more of a study group thing than it is a decision-making thing, but it gives you information, and there would be, if it's a general meeting, it will be public comments, so that somebody can make comments or ask a question. And then, I think most of the people are aware, there was a lawsuit that the California School Board Association was sued, and Ms. Brady and the staff here have turned out documents to the parents so that they can decide whether they want to opt out or in to providing information based upon the judge's ruling. So that's on the website for anybody that wants to go and look at it. And those are the ends, that's it.
All right, thank you very much, Member Goldberg. Okay, Member Erdlin.
Thank you. First of all, I wanted to congratulate Kathy Perini for her 2 years of service to us. It's been outstanding service as our superintendent. This is right about now's her anniversary. So. And then I'd just like to reiterate the plug for the Kiwanis Pancake Breakfast. Kiwanis does an awful lot for the youth in our community, and this is one way for us to support them. They always put on a very good breakfast. So the Amita Society at 5918 Cloverly Avenue, very worthwhile prelude to the parade. We enjoy it every year. And then lastly, I'd just like to say how cute our Royal Court was. Really pretty fun to see those youngsters, and I really hope they will at some point come back and give us some feedback. We have great citizens for 11 years that are kind of captive and have a vested interest in giving us good, useful feedback. So, thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Member Erdlin. Member Morrison.
All right, well, first of all, I want to send congratulations out there to Trish O'Brien for her Golden Apple Award. I can't think of anyone who deserves it better than Trish does. Our congratulations to boys basketball for their great run this year. Of course, the ladies water polo. But, you know, we have a lot of student athletes throughout the district, and a lot of them work so hard. You know, they say that there's no I in team, but there definitely is an I in preparation. And a lot of these athletes are out there preparing on their own, working hard, you know, to train to be better for their team. And, you know, like Mr. Pomeroy has been to so many different events, games, and I go to as many as I can. I would just encourage that everyone give support to these other teams that don't get mentioned so much. You know, we've got volleyball, we've got golf, we've got tennis, and other water sports, and they all work hard, and they deserve our recognition and our thanks for representing us as well as they do. Because you know, every event they go to, they're a class act, and everyone can tell the difference between Temple City athletes and other students just because of their character traits. The Camellia Parade this weekend. I was invited to attend or watch the parade in the grandstands, but I chose instead to walk the parade with Emperor. The little kids have been working hard building their floats, and I just wanted to make sure that I was down and nitty-gritty with them, walking the parade and getting them to the end of it. So I'm looking forward to that. I will be going to the Camellia luncheon after that. I've never been to it before, and I'm jazzed. I'm really looking forward to going there. The Personnel Commission, is now back to 3 members. George Gould and Ann Seitz were both sworn in already. They had their reorganization meeting a few weeks ago. And so now Mrs. Gardner is the chairperson, and Mr. George Gould is the vice chair. They switch off officers every year, just like we do on the board. I had the privilege of going to their last 2 meetings and just watching how they all interact with Mr. Kuna. And I'm very confident that the 3 commissioners and Mr. Kuna are going to have a really good tenure coming up. I'll echo the statements from Mr. Nolberg about the standing committee of the city and the mayor's State of the City address. I attended both of those and found it interesting, especially to see Ms. Bailey here and the youth committee that was, the mayor really held them up and promoted them a lot. He was very proud of the youth committee, and I was sitting there, being part of the district, I just felt a sense of pride knowing that the city is recognizing our youth and the kids in our district like the way they do. And last but not least, I'll be attending the Masters in Governance courses next weekend, March 4th and 5th. There's 8 courses, and I'm going to take 2 of them next weekend. I'm looking forward to it. I appreciate the opportunity that the district and the fellow board members afford me to better myself and to better my position within this governance team, because we're all just as strong as the weakest link, and so if we're all strong, then the team is just going to be awesome. So thank you, I appreciate it. That's it.
All right, thank you very much, Member Morrison. Okay, yeah, without question, this is an extremely busy week for all of us. And frankly, I'll be happy once Sunday evening comes around. But yeah, just to echo all the comments that all of my other fellow board members have said, finally got a chance to watch my first high school basketball game in over 2 decades. It's been a while. And it brought back memories of when I was on the bench on the freshman team under Coach Langdale. So, it gives me a sense of appreciation what it takes to be a starter is what I'm saying. So I give great credit to all these kids. And yeah, water polo, all right. We wish them the best. We hope that they bring it home for us. Boy, so many things, and I think everybody said all this stuff. We've got a lot of promotions from the high school mini reunion at the Camila Festival, and of course, Kiwanis' breakfast is a long-standing tradition, to some of the entertainment that's going to be happening, as well as food trucks and a whole bunch of stuff. It's going to be a very, very busy weekend. I want to thank our team for again, going out to see the STEM Academy in Hollywood. I think it's very refreshing to see how a group of challenged students are given opportunities to better themselves through career pathways, and hopefully that, with any luck, some of our students can see some of those opportunities as well. And oh, yes, I actually attended the Association of California School Administrators, the AXA breakfast this morning, honoring all of our volunteers, and one volunteer specifically, Mrs. Tricia O'Brien. Can't think of a better person who deserves that. But I learned something from that breakfast. One is that South Pasadena is the place to work at, apparently. I'm kidding. No, the echoing thing is that every school district that honored their volunteers have placed such great value to them, and, you know, how can you not? At the level that some of these volunteers go through, you know, there are so few of them, and it's so nice to be able to honor them. So I congratulate Trish and O'Brien for her years and years of ongoing service and accomplishment to this district. And yep, again, busy weekend. Float tomorrow, Friday night, Bailey. Okay, you guys can come visit because we are way behind, so we're gonna be there for a while. Yep, and AB 2756. That involves the public disclosure of proposed collective bargaining agreement, and this is in reference to CSCA 823, which I will file there. So, all right.
Oh, I just have one.
Sorry. One other thing.
One other, it's just I'll pass it down, this was just the confirmation of the royal court that they were coming, but I think you'll enjoy, they each have a picture that they drew, and it was just a letter thanking us for welcoming them tonight, so. Thank you, Mr. Bell, back to you.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Okay, now, we're going to move into the discussion information item section of our meeting. Items that the board would like to discuss or information presented to the board. These items do not require board action. And what we have here is business services, facilities use report. Ms. Sorrell, we are excited to hear about this. Yeah.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about the school district facilities. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is what sorts of organizations use our facilities, and then which of the facilities they use. Then we're going to talk about how much they use the facilities, who pays for them, who doesn't, and then I'd like to talk to you about the agreements that we currently have with the city related to overall use of the facilities, the OPM specifically, and the fact that both of those agreements will expire on June 30. And then I'll be hoping you'll have some discussion and perhaps provide some guidance on how you'd like to move forward with those agreements. So the city of Temple City uses quite a few of our facilities, and these are some examples of what they're for. There's softball, the Stars Club, Miss Temple City, basketball programs, things like that. Then we have quite a few after-school educational programs that use different school sites, primarily the elementary schools. There's some examples: Chess Masters, Noble Education, Kids Art, the AA Academy for Chinese School. And there are other organizations outside of educational or the city: Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, Kiwanis, the Ramrodders, folks like that. So at the elementary schools, they use classrooms, cafeteria, library, lunch shelters, playgrounds, athletic fields, and restrooms. And then at the secondary schools, they use, in addition to that, soccer field, the football field, JV fields, the library, lunch shelters, parking lots. And at the district office, people use the parking lots and on occasion the conference rooms. So the next I'm going to show you is how each of those groups use it by site. And I apologize, it's a little bit on the small side, but you should all have copies of this in front of you. So the first site we're going to look at is Cloverly. The left-hand column will tell you which group is using the site, and then the middle column G will tell you which of the facilities they're using, whether it's chargeable or not, the total days that they use it, and then the total hours. So for example, outside groups use Cloverly 3,562 hours each school year. The other thing I like to mention is that this will only be those groups that actually file their facilities use permit. Not all groups file. Some groups use our facilities and they aren't quite going through the process. So these are those that file the correct facilities use. Yes, sir?
How are they using it without, sorry, how are they using it without filing? I'm just curious. I mean, I'm not interrupting your.
No,
Go ahead.
no worries. I think we have some opportunities to make a little tighter policy and procedure perhaps in the district of how we have our facilities used. They're older, and all this use is how they are available for our students. So that's Cloverly.
Oh, but as a question,
Yes, sir?
so chargeable means, what does chargeable mean?
Okay, let's talk about that. So when someone fills out a facilities use permit, they can be charged or not charged. The board has a policy, which we'll get to in a few minutes, that has a set rate to be charged for restrooms, parking lots, fields, that kind of thing. So right now, the site administrator has the bandwidth to decide what's charged and what isn't. So sometimes we charge for custodial, sometimes people use a field, but the site administrator may not charge that group to use the field, for example. So the next site is the district office, which gets much less use than the others. Primarily, it's the Community Festival. The Kiwanis uses a little bit. The total hours are 291. Now, we have a lot of groups that meet here. The different bargaining units, things like that meet here, but we don't have them fill out a facilities use permit because they're part of the team. The next facility we'll look at is Emperor. And Emperor, the total overall use is 1,286 hours per year. Next would be La Rosa, and La Rosa has a total of 4,090 hours per year of outside use. And then the next group we're going to talk about, or site rather, is Longden, which is the most heavily used site in the district. And you will notice it has a total of 8,465 hours of use by outside groups. Oak has 2,048 hours. A lot of it is related to the city's basketball and gym use, which we'll talk about in a little more detail in a minute. And then at the high school, it's 1,076 hours. And again, I'll remind you, this is just the groups that actually file the use permit. So if there are people using it on the weekend that aren't using the permits, then those hours won't be included here. So these are conservative numbers. So the total for the district is 20,818 hours of use. Any questions on that one? Yes, sir.
No.
No?
Are you sure? Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Please. I noticed, and I guess it's broken down by what is being used, but I see in some cases there's some uses chargeable to one organization, but other uses to the same organization are not chargeable. And is that sort of at the discretion right now of the site
Right, yes.
administrator?
Yes,
As
and
far
as I
as
mentioned,
what-
I'd like to maybe get that a little bit more consistent.
As far as whether they're paying for restrooms, for example, versus paying for the kitchen or paying for the field.
Right.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, so the next thing I would like to look at with you is a schedule of the use by the city in particular. Again, I apologize for the size of this, but I hope you can look at the copy you have in front of you. So there are two different agreements with the city. One is for overall use of the district, and the second one is for the Oak Gym. So I have this split into two groups for conversation's sake. This first spreadsheet that we're looking at is the use of everything other than the Oak Gym. So the district pays $25,000 a year to the city pays the district $25,000 a year. It's a 5-year agreement that again ends June 30. There's a 3% per year escalator that's built in there. So at this point, we're getting about $28,000 a year for complete use of the district facilities. So I have listed each of the items where the city's using it. For instance, Star Club, winter baseball, or basketball, track, tennis courts, that kind of thing. You'll notice that the track and the tennis courts, there is no amount of hours, there's no charge there, because it's just the community using that. If these same hours and same facilities were used by outside groups, according to the board's policy, it would be $129,000, and that's excluding Oak. Any questions before I move to the Oak section?
And I'm sure we'll get there, but since we're comparing numbers right now of 129,000 compared to what the contract currently calls for, the amounts that the 129,000 are calculated from, do we feel, are those actual costs? In other words, that's showing costs that we incur for cleaning and for other things.
It's not meant to represent cost.
Okay.
What it's meant to represent is, according to the board policy, you have a list of facilities and what the charges are if an outside group uses them. So this would be assuming an outside group other than the city would come in and use these same facilities for these same hours. This is what the charge could be.
And if I can interject as well, the other thing that we've noticed as we've worked through this process is we don't have in our policy incurred costs, utilities, paper goods, those types of things, which also would be a point of discussion perhaps at one time, because we don't have any, there is no charge for that. So the fee is designed, so to speak, to cover that, but yet it's not sufficient.
Do you have a question?
All right, Member Olbert?
Yeah, just to clarify, for the outside schools to use a classroom per se, are we limited to how much we can charge for the use per hour or per day or
We're
whatever?
limited by the current board policy and the,
No, by the
this,
state. Are we limited, is there a law or something that says you can't charge more than so much?
I would have to research that for you, I'm not sure.
As far as not being a certain amount, but there are certain caveats within different groups that have the nonprofit, thank you, nonprofit status. If there is a slight variance in those as to who can be charged and who can't, but pretty much we're able to charge groups, all groups, something. But we don't.
And in your administrative regs, you've got different types of organizations and who can be charged, who can use the facilities, and who can't, depending on what kind of organization they are. So I included those for you for reference, for discussion. They're in the pages labeled BP 1 through. Okay, so the next spreadsheet I'd like you to look at, this is related to the Oak Gym. So the district had an agreement with the city, same time period, it expires also June 30th this year. The Oak Gym floors were refinished and improved. The cost was over $100,000. The city paid $51,752. The district paid the balance, and that was for a minimum use of 25 hours per week. And as I said, that will expire in a couple of months. If this same facility was rented out according to the board policy, same rates, not related to cost, but board policy, that would be $110,548.
Question, for which time period? The 150?
The 110 would represent one school year of current use. So the city is very interested in hearing back from the board as far as a go-forward agreement. So I'll just remind you that there are two agreements right now, both expiring in June. The first one covers the district overall excluding Oak. And the second one was for Oak Gym, $110,000 expense, split 50-50 between the district and the city. And the agreement was split the cost and 5 years of use, 25 hours a week minimum.
All right, Member Palmer.
Sorry.
No, it's good, go for it.
Okay, this is where we ask questions. Maybe can't answer right now, I'm sorry about that, but looking through, say, the whole chart, for example, I'll just pick out a couple of examples. Sports programs that are not, sports clubs, for example, would we be able to determine, how many of the students or the children participating in those are our students versus other students? Or some of the schools, I imagine if it's an after-school program, that's probably our kids, but, I certainly, no reason for you to be able to sort this out right now, but just I'm wondering in general, would we be able to ascertain that, or maybe even just as a suggestion, if we're making suggestions for organizations for whom, there's a certain percentage of the children being served are our students, maybe that would make a difference as far as what we might want to charge that organization.
So we don't currently collect that information, but we certainly could. And if I might add one more comment I should have made previously, all of these programs that we've talked about with the city is charging the families for the students or community members to participate. So I think that also needs to be considered as you're discussing this.
All right. Member Ridley.
Thank you. I guess I'd like to offer a little bit of perspective. And I'll just use approximately 8 years ago, we had the joint use agreement where basically the city could use the school facilities and the district could use city facilities with no reciprocal cost. And then, especially as we ran into some lean years, the district was concerned about, gee, is this equitable? And as I recall, these numbers are probably 8 years old, so I may be off a little bit in terms of the accuracy, but I think when we looked at it, it turned out the district was using city facilities approximately 40 hours a year, and the city was using district facilities about 4,000 hours a year. And our agreement was we don't charge each other. So the board really raised that issue because we needed to balance the budget, and in the lack of any scientific study or numbers, $5,000 was thrown out. So I think the first year, approximately 7 years ago, the city paid us $5,000. And then, you know, we did more analysis, and it was really clear, as you've demonstrated here, that there's a great use by the city of district facilities, and there's fairly minimal use of city facilities by the district. So I think for the last number of years, maybe 5 years is what you mentioned, there's been a $25,000 fee to the city, and the city's always pointed out that they paid for half of the renovation of the gym floor and the facility at Oak. That is probably about 4 or 5 years old at this point. So you know, my interest, and I think what's equitable is that we look to you know, what does it really cost to make our facility available? And I think we all serve the public. I think it's important to balance whatever decisions we make with what's fair. But as the superintendent stated, we have a lot of consumables. The restrooms are open, they go through paper. We have custodial costs. We have administrative time that goes into monitoring these things. We have school site impacts when, you know, if it's rainy, they go into a classroom, and sometimes there's a little bit of a mess made. And there's really no recapture or no calculation done to deal with wear and tear on our facilities, the impact on the playgrounds for heavier use, and the need to upgrade those to keep them, frankly, just safe. So I think from my viewpoint, I'd be interested in kind of getting a more comprehensive picture. Again, this was very comprehensive. I'm most appreciative of it. What it didn't tell us is how much I don't think it's in here, the city is using our facility. I'm sorry, the district is using their facilities.
Well, allow me to provide that to you.
Okay.
So, as far as the district using city facilities, I did check with the city to make sure that we have the same perspective. So we use their parks for class visits. We use Live Oak Park for the back-to-school breakfast. And we use Live Oak Park for the 8th grade dance, although we're having significant difficulty this year getting that scheduled. So those are the items that they have us using and that I have us using. Then I'd like to also add that when we hang the enrollment banners, which you see outside, we're charged $428 to hang that. When we have the health fair, we've been charged anywhere from $3,966 for that day to $6,358 for that day. I'd just like to add that into the conversation.
So, you know, my sense is, again, and let me add one other piece. I think at some point the city actually performed some kind of study to analyze their utilization so that they understood it. I don't think we've ever had that shared with us, and so that would be interesting if they would share that. And aside from the city, I think we have a number of other groups using our facilities, and one concern at the high school has been, you go there on the weekend, there is heavy usage. there's been a couple times when I've called the sheriffs because there's beer bottles stacking up, and we clearly don't want that on our school sites. And so I think there's heavy utilization by informal groups or maybe formal groups that know that they don't have to get a permit. Or maybe they're getting it through the site administration and the district simply is not aware of it. So I guess one item that I'd like to see us look into a little more is kind of the security on our sites and how the site administration is dealing with it. And maybe that should be centralized more in the district office rather than the sites. I don't really know, and I would turn to our staff to help us with that issue. But I think this is an area that, I'll tell you, cities, when they charge fees for services, are only allowed to charge up to what the actual cost of delivering that service is. And it's a government code section, and I suspect that probably applies to us. We cannot become, I don't believe, a profit center where we make money off of this, but we would be entitled to recoup all of our true costs, which would include depreciation, equipment replacement, administrative overhead, all the things that really go into making the facilities available. So I think we have a little more work to do, and I think this warrants further attention on our part.
Okay, thank you very much, Member Lee. Are there any other comments or questions? Member Noldberg?
Just an observation. As I recall, the city had an outside consultant help them determine what their unit costs were for a whole series of items, including the banners and et cetera. And the person came in and analyzed the actual cost. So it was like a third-party involvement. So it was neutral, in a sense, it's neutral because they didn't carry any baggage with them. But it's expensive, that's the problem. They didn't say how much it cost, but that's how they came up with the cost, and then they published a list of all the costs. So if you want to put a banner up and you're not nonprofit, it costs X number of dollars. And basically that's their actual cost of sending two people out with a truck and string the thing up, $400 and some, I think it is. I forgot what the number is. If you're nonprofit, you're still gonna pay. I don't know, the thing was that almost all the banners were put up by nonprofits. So it's kind of like a vicious circle. If they excluded all the nonprofits, then they wouldn't get any revenue at all. And they would do it for free. But if we look at the numbers, that's one of the things is hopefully the city's numbers will be based upon the same analysis that we're using, and that is the use per hour of the facilities and not per day like they did before. So that we're looking at apples and apples instead of apples and oranges. Because last time the city came up with their analysis and they used different parameters than we did and used the whole day. Whether they were using it for 2 hours or a whole day, they said this was being used for such and such one time. And you don't know if they were talking 1 hour or all day. And then try to compare it with our data, and it's virtually impossible. So somebody needs to make sure that the city knows how we did it, so the city hopefully does it the same way, so we can compare the two reports, just laying them side by side. And I too would hope that we could come up with the actual cost of like the paper and the maintenance and the thing. And one of the problems I think we did discuss a couple of years ago was the issue of, at least at the high school, there's a lack of security. There's so many keys out there that virtually there is no security at the high school, even though there may be a lock and chain on gates. Somebody has a key somewhere, and we don't even know how many keys are out there anymore. And there's kind of like a universal lock system, so that once you get a key, you can almost get into almost any facility. And that means we have to do some work in making it minimal difficult for people who did not come through the proper process of filling out the forms for you so that we can acknowledge who's on the campus at a given time.
All right, thank you. Member Pomeroy.
Thank you very much for presenting the numbers to us, the information to us. I mean, for me, it's very helpful to see it on paper, and I think this is a very candid snapshot as far as it goes, but a very candid presentation of where we are. And as a board, I certainly hope to continue to discuss where we'd like to be. And in looking through the board bylaw, board policy, I expect there are ways that we can improve that, which we can certainly agendize and discuss. My suggestion, this is a discussion item tonight, but my suggestion would be that, especially when we're looking at, sites having control over the use of their facilities, that concerns me a bit, only in that, and I understand that certain facilities use funds generated by the site, stay at the site sometimes. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. Would all of the facilities use funds stay locally, or?
It's about a 50-50 split between the district office and the sites.
Okay. And I'm sure there's a rationale for that, and so a site administrator would want to have use, and obviously they wouldn't want to see their facility, being damaged, but by being used and then generating some funds to them, there's an incentive for them to, I guess, seek out maybe organizations that would use it. However, I'm just concerned that then leads to whether unequal uses or unequal policies, and maybe, okay, I'm offering a program, or I could use a field of an elementary school, or I could use a certain facility of an elementary school, let me go to Longden, but then I'll go to La Rosa, Emperor, give me, charge me a little bit less, and setting up almost kind of a competition, whereas if the district office was a little more at the sort of the point people and could say, well, this facility's used too much, this one would be better, and these are our standard policies, these are our standard rates. Obviously, we have to take into account certain things, like I'm sure some of these organizations, and I'll point to one which I'm imagining has been using our facilities for many years, Temple City National Little League, and so, there's obviously a sort of a set of expectations maybe, or a history that, as a board, I don't think we should be micromanaging how the district deals with that, but acknowledge that it's there, and besides the city using our facilities, some of these other organizations which, maybe feel like city groups or civic groups, really the fabric of our community, we have to take into account, historically what our relationship has been. I'm very optimistic for our relationship with the city because of the interactions I've seen between our superintendent and Ms. Sorrell with staff members of the city, and those relationships I think are really key here. When we have a joint meeting with the city council, which we do periodically, that'll be an opportunity to discuss things, but I'd suggest to the board that, setting some policies up and having some of that discussion prior to that meeting would probably be a good thing, so that the five of us can get on the same page, have a consensus, and then, just have some of that done, have some of that work done before we start discussing new periods of time. And then, however you all want to discuss the contract with the city going forward, I know the five of us are very interested in that. And, there's a perception out there, I don't only hear it in our community, but everywhere, that, well, it's a public school, we pay taxes, so we get to use it. This is from citizens, and that's and I understand that. And I've never been successful in explaining, well, it is a school facility that's for the purpose of the students who are there 9 months out of the year, and our state funding is going down, and we have costs incurred. People don't, they just hear, I pay taxes, and it's a public school. And whether their own kids are going to a public school, whether they have kids, they feel a sense of ownership. People feel a sense of ownership over our facilities. So Anyway, I've said enough, but I just want to thank you for laying this all out. As I said, seeing the numbers, it's eye-opening to me, and I certainly want to hear from our facility staff and from all of our staff as to what uses have been good, what uses have been problematic, and as has been so ably described by my colleagues, what the costs are and how we can account for that.
Okay, very good. Brenda.
I just wanted to add one more thing, because when I drive home tonight at 9:30, I'm sure the lights at the tennis courts at the high school will be on. And, one of the things that when cities do what's called a cost allocation plan to determine what the true cost of delivering a certain service is or renting a facility is, and it turns out that they're not collecting an adequate amount to cover the true cost, somebody else is paying for it. Either the general fund, and they often use the term the general fund is hemorrhaging because we're paying for what's being undercharged. And I think the concern I have is that if we're doing the same thing, our students and the money we put into our classrooms is being hampered by what we're giving away for free by undercharging. So I don't want to be unfair, but I do want to be fair to our kids that we're doing the right thing. And I can't leave the topic without pointing out there are a number of things that the city does do for us, like providing crossing guards, and I think those services are important and we are most appreciative. So I hope we can find a middle ground that works well for everybody.
Okay, very good.
I'm sorry, just very briefly, but I want to recognize you, Marianne, and the team for improving the tennis court situation and resolving a contract before, so the courts are now actually available to the community, which, but at the lights, I think they just stay on until a certain time instead of being turned on or off when people are using them.
So as far as the lights go, I did get a little bit hardcore about the lights and had them shut off for a long period of time. Because I just couldn't, sorry?
I like fun.
Okay, because I was having a really difficult time dealing with the folks that were using it. So by having the lights, it sort of solved itself. The coaches though, at the high school, the coaches at the high school specifically said, please leave them on until 10 o'clock because our kids need to be able to practice. So that is why they're on until 10 o'clock. Now that is a request from the coaches at the high school.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. Kareem?
No, go ahead, Mr. Bell, you're the president.
No, please.
We thank you for your comments. We are taking a very close and serious look at this entire plan. Our intent going forward is to have this be the clearinghouse. The business division would be the clearinghouse for all facilities, because we also see it as coming from a site perspective. It's hard sometimes to, after a group's come for 10, 15 years, to say, gosh, I'm really sorry, we can't afford to have you here, we can't have you here. And we have felt that it would really help once we get a better handle on the actual cost and the actual use and track, because Marianne knows, poor thing, I'm calling her all the time on the weekends. Oh my gosh, I just drove by such and such a place and you should see the people. So, and then we come that Monday, we look to see, do we have a facilities use permit? So those are the types of things that have gotten a bit out of range. The other thing is our policies have not been updated since 2003, which is concerning. So we're looking at all those aspects, but we appreciate the input because it helps us feel that we've had these very discussions. And yes, it isn't just the city. There are a number of groups, and some are beneficial to us, and some actually don't give any benefit to our students or anybody else. So we need to really start fresh, and we've talked about that, kind of building from the bottom, analyzing every group, looking at their use, looking at the number of students that are involved, Temple City Unified students. And then, and for some of the groups, they don't really have any affiliation, it's just we happen to have the property. So we have all of those areas we want to look at more clearly too. So we do want to be good neighbors, but we also want to be smart in exactly what Mr. Ridley said. It becomes that we're losing money in the use of our facilities regardless of who pays rent and who doesn't. It's not sufficient enough to offset what it's costing us. And that is often overlooked by certain groups. So we want to clean all of that up too. And really, once people request a facilities use, that we are clear, these are all the things that come into your request. It's not just a matter of, well, can I use the property or not? So, so we hear you and we agree, and we just want to make sure we do it in a balanced fashion, because we firmly believe there is more use out there. We just still can't quite get our arms around all of it yet.
You know, the city is looking to expand their recreational offerings to the youth in the city. You know, they're looking at doing some more basketball camps and finding additional venues to provide these services. So you know, they may be coming to us to somehow expand what they're already doing with our facilities. So that's just something that everyone should keep in mind and you should know about. You know, I remember as a kid myself, you just go walk up to schools and there was no fences. You know, the annual turkey bowls on the school football fields. You know, there were rites of passage, and you know, part of hometown pride is remembering what you did as a kid in schools, and I don't want to take that away at all. You know, I'd love to open up the schools more, you know, facilities more, but at the same time, you know, like Mr. Ridley said, the costs, we don't know it yet, but they are being taken away from the kids. I mean, we're spending probably hundreds of thousands of dollars more than we're taking in just to cover facilities usage, and that's being taken away from salaries for the teachers, it's being taken away from activities that we can provide to the students. So, you know, it's important that we do really nail this down and don't let it get out of hand, you know, because again, the city is looking to expand and provide more. So.
Okay, excellent. You know, thank you again for all this hard work to provide us with information. Personally, this is the first time I've ever seen any of this, frankly, even as a parent or as just a community member, I had no sense of what that scope was and what these agreements were. And again, I agree with all of my fellow board members that I believe that this requires a little bit more work and studying and preparing. So we, you know, look to you guys as our guide to what we think is fair for the district, for our kids. And as board members, again, it's a very delicate balance, but at the end of the day, we are here to serve the children of the schools in any capacity that we need to. So, thank you.
Just one other comment. I know you've already expressed your appreciation to Ms. Sorrell. Basically, she started from scratch. There was no documentation, no information, nothing. She started basically from us going out and seeking information to compile it. There has been no history, there's no historical perspective for many years. And so I personally just appreciate all your work. So thank you.
Can I make two final comments?
Of course.
So first is, I don't want anyone on the board to think that I'm saying that the city should pay those rates I have there. I'm not even implying that, I'm just saying as a discussion point. The other comment is, when you look at the chargeable versus non-chargeable, if it says chargeable, it doesn't mean that we're charging for every possible fee on the board list. It just means that there's some kind of charge. The majority of the groups are only paying like 2 hours of custodial time, and it's actual time that we're paying employees. It's not including paper goods and cleaning materials. And the last one is, just keep this in the back of your minds, we're gonna have a beautiful pool pretty soon. And the city's very interested in that. And I think we'll have to look at that very carefully because that pool is gonna have higher maintenance expenses than we currently have. And I know they're quite anxious to use it. I'm not implying that they shouldn't use it, but we're gonna have to be really thoughtful about what that looks like. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the next item, educational services. An update on reauthorization, excuse me, sorry, of the, of elementary and secondary at, Every Student Succeeds at ESSA. Dr. Fantasy.
Right, thank you for this time to share with you some legislation. And like Art, I too am getting over a cold, so if my voice quivers, I apologize in advance. So we have new legislation called the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, and also known as Every Student Succeeds Act, the ESSA. And it was signed into law on December 10th, 2015 by President Obama. And so tonight I'd like to give you an update on what that means. So looking at the overview, what I shared tonight, some things will be new, some things are still in place from the old legislation. However, the new items will not go into effect until 2017-2018 school year. So this gives us time to plan and to think about how we're going to work towards that school year with our school plans and with our budgets. One thing's going to remain in effect for next year, and that is Title I program improvement. So you know that as a district, we are in PI, program improvement, and you know that we have two schools, La Rosa and Hope, that are in year 2 of program improvement. So next year, we will need to continue our supplemental educational services. That's where the outside contracts come in, and we legally have to hire vendors from outside to tutor our students because these two schools were identified as not meeting the old NCLB targets, okay? So basically, this new legislation covers 7 areas. They're listed there from standards down to federal educational funding. In looking at standards then, many of the items are not new. We know that we have standards in reading, math, and science. We also know that, looking at the last bullet, that states are allowed to adopt standards in other subjects. That has always been true. However, the key is that the Secretary of Education has little authority over the state's academic standards, and so that's the caveat there. So if we choose to add something to our California standards, we have that right to do that. It's not governed by the national government. So I'm not going to read every single bullet. I'm just going to highlight some key things for us. In looking at assessments, we know that we still need 95% of students must take the assessments that happen in the spring, known as the SBAC. You've heard us talk about that before. And we assess right now in math and reading language arts. We assess in grades 3 through 8 and once in high school. So while that piece seems new, it wasn't necessarily under the old NCLB requirement because we started testing in grade 2. So it's a slight difference, but it will continue under this new authorization. We're going to continue assessing in science, but only once during the grade spans of grades 3 through 5, once during grades 6 through 9, and once during grades 10 through 12. For accountability, the old driver, you've heard the term AYP, right? Annual Yearly Proficiency? I even forgotten the term, or progress, annual, progress. And that the old driver said 100% requirement by 2015. All students will reach 100% of proficiency, right? Well, that was the wrong driver. So now under this new legislation, we have a different accountability system that looks like these items outlined in A through D. So we're still going to measure performance of our subgroups. We're still going to measure high school graduation rates, but now that's going to become part of the accountability system. It's no longer limited to a one-day, one test on how the student did on the old CST. We're also going to look at other indicators that focus on school quality. So at first glance, it looks like school quality includes student engagement, educator engagement, school climate, and safety. But looking at the legislation a little bit deeper, it also means at the high school level, how are we providing access to educational courses, perhaps honors and AP classes? Do all students have access to that, or are we putting inhibitors or roadblocks where students might not be able to take even a foreign language if they don't have enough English? And so it's things like that that we have to wrestle with and start looking at our master schedule in order to meet the new demands of this accountability system. Item D, English learner data will still be collected. You've heard us talk about the self-test, right? When Natasha Newman shared with you. We still need to have the self-test, and we are now going to count that score, self, as well as how our English learners do on the SBAC, under a Title I accountability. Current system, we have Title I and Title III accountability. Title III will drop off, and our English learners will be counted under Title I. So that's a significant change for us. If you look to the right side of the page, we have 3 additional subgroups then. So not only will disaggregated data for our SBAC be reported by homeless, a student with parents in military, student in foster care, but it will also demonstrate how we're meeting those graduation rates for these subpopulations, as well as the equal access and student engagement. And looking at the next topic, school improvement, there's a slight change. Currently, Title I funds, if you're in program improvement, we need to reserve 10% for professional development and 20% of our allocation for the school improvement, the outside vendors that come and work with our students and tutor them. Well, under the new legislation, they're reducing that to 7%, which means more monies will go back to the schools for the schools to have flexibility in designing programs instead of being lockstep by the federal government. And then for school improvement, there's some new ways to look at it. Every 3 years, schools would be identified as needing comprehensive support and improvement, and that's going to be based on the lowest 5% of Title I schools, high schools with graduation rate less than 67%, but that's not Temple City, we have a higher rate than that, and schools with 1 or more subgroups that might be underperforming. School choice is still going to be a state decision. So in California, right now, at our PI schools, Oak and La Rosa, we have to send out a letter to our parents to say, if you do not want your child to attend those schools, you have a choice of going to a non-PI school. Longden is the non-PI school for our district. We only have 1 middle school, so then we have to connect with a local similar middle school, and Dana Middle School rose to the occasion. So if our students chose to leave our district, then they could go to a non-PI school, and Dana happens to meet that need for our Oak Avenue students. So we're waiting to hear how the state's going to decide under this new legislation if we continue that or not.
Is Dana Arcadia?
Yes, it is. Teacher and leader effectiveness. It eliminates the definition of highly qualified teacher requirements, but yet we still need to have qualified teachers in our classroom teaching our students. But it also expands how we use our Title II funding. And so we're able to use professional development, Title II funds, for all teachers, no longer just for math and English. We can open it up to PE teachers, to music teachers, where under the old requirements we could not. So that is a significant change. Also, using the money for our paraprofessionals, our classified staff, to support them, and think about our instructional aides in our classroom who could really benefit from Title II funds. On the right-hand side, you'll see in bold, professional development, evidence-based. So that's going to be a new term that you're going to hear over the next few years. Under the old NCLB, we had scientifically based, research-based. You can only do programs by curriculum that met scientifically or research-based. Now they're looking at evidence-based. What evidence do we have that this program has moved student improvement, student academic forward? What is our evidence? And we know that we have many drivers than just the single test score. So that's a big change for Title II. Now, this is interesting. If you look on the right-hand side, well-rounded education is the larger term, which means that the definition of core academic subjects is now eliminated. When you think of core academic subjects, you probably think of English, math, science, and history, right? The 4 cores. Well, no longer is that going to be considered separate or on a hierarchy plane. It's well-rounded education focused on the whole child. And so under this new block grant, you'll see items such as STEAM, school counseling, there's physical education, and an emphasis on technology, because it's not just about isolated subjects any longer. You'll see that early childhood education is going to come into more vogue and renown. 21st century skills. You'll see that as districts developing programs to reduce bullying and harassment, that's going to be a key to developing the well-rounded education, the well-rounded child. And you'll also see that Title IV is going to emerge, known as 21st century schools. And that's going to have a focus on counseling, arts, music, etc. And so our definitions are expanding and growing with this new legislation. And then the last area was federal education funding. So basically, this new legislation gives us more flexibility of our federal funds. It allows for transferability between Title I, Title II, Title IV, and it's no longer lockstep, where if we use Title I to buy this computer, only Title I students can use this computer, so those restrictions are lifted, and it gives us local control to design programs that will best meet the needs of our students and our schools and our teachers. And so that's a big shift in this legislation. And then lastly, what are our next steps? We'll continue working with our business office on budgets. We'll continue writing the typical plans that we always write, and tonight you're going to see the single plan for student achievement as we ask for your approval. We still have the LEA plan, we still have the LCAP plan, Title III and safety plans, but our guess is that once this goes into operation in 2017, 2018, that some of these plans will go away and we'll have one master plan. And our guess is that will be the local control accountability plan. And then we'll continue with program improvement for next year, but the year after it will look differently. And we're going to continue to identify district and school priorities, think outside of the box, and appreciate that funding flexibility. And then last, we're going to reevaluate our current practices, our course offerings, our course access, and we're really going to review thinking points that will bubble up from our site administrators, from our teachers, and from district folks. So that's it in a nutshell, is what the new plan's about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Comments, questions? Member Nolan?
Just to clarify, this is a federal law,
Yes,
and so it's going to be federally funded.
yes.
And we can rely upon the federal government not to shortchange us as they did in the past with funding, right?
Flip a coin.
I'm not sure how to answer that question.
But is the law such that it becomes a funded a mandate type thing, unfunded mandate? We have to comply with the law, whether they give us the money or not.
Yes.
So if they shortchange us, just if, then what, would we be looking what? At LCAP or some other funding source
Right,
to fill this void?
right.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Member Palmer?
Yeah, I just had a question. Obviously, pulling this together, presenting to us, and thank you for doing that. You've had to spend some time learning about the changes, but I guess my question is does it seem like this is then gonna make our staff do more things or use more of our time, or once we're used to this, is this gonna make things a little easier for our administration in general?
I see it as providing local control and more flexibility, and that we'll be able to strategize and build programs as opposed to being a lockstep, this program versus this program. And so I think we can do more, actually, more with less, so to speak.
What Kate's trying to say is we're hopeful,
Yeah.
but we're not like cheering or anything yet. It's all sounds good, but everything we're reading, all of this is in place, so to speak, but they haven't worked out rubrics, details, so it's the same thing we went through before. We're hopeful, and it does give us a little bit more flexibility, but we're also worried too that we could see a difference in Title I funding. So that's the other part, still providing the deliverables, so to speak, but without adequate funding.
And I thank you for addressing that, and Member Nolenberg for bringing that up. And as we, as we go forward, as we're talking about budgeting and as we see what income or what funds we are getting from the feds or not getting, it's helpful for us and certainly for our public to understand when we do have constrictions in law that we aren't getting paid for, but we have to provide funding for and other things like that. So as we go along, I think we'd appreciate, just sort of not a separate update, but just a reminder that, this particular thing is required by federal law, and that's why we have to pay for it, that kind of stuff is helpful as we, when we discuss budgeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Member Nolenberg?
Yes. This replaced No Child Left Behind.
Yes.
And is there, I guess some of the requirements have changed, but basically, did No Child Left Behind get adequate funding over its life?
You know the answer.
That's a loaded question. I believe no.
Okay, and then the other one is, this is a federal law funded under the federal budget, which is, I think, October, isn't it? September, October, and the state is June. We have to submit by May. Is there gonna be a problem of not knowing how much money we're gonna get for Title I?
So to answer that, there are some timing challenges between the state budget and the federal budget. So we make our best estimates for the federal money as we put together our budget for the state timeline. And then when we come to first interim, we make adjustments and let you know if there's been any change in revenue up or down at that time.
Okay.
You every year. All right, thank you very much. Any other comments? Thank you very much for this presentation. And again, this looks promising and hopeful. It's certainly, I think, a step in the right direction, but that, I'm not sure is saying much, considering its predecessor with NCLB, which, personally, I think was created by a group of people with an IQ below 50, but that's just my personal opinion. Again, let's see what this happens, and please keep us updated regarding some of the finer details, because I think that's how it's really going to impact us. Let's just do away with the whole program improvement. I'm actually surprised that it's even there, because really this should be a complete revamp, and it just doesn't make sense. Anyway, thank you very much. Okay, let's move on now to the discussion action agenda portion of our board meeting, items that may require discussion, but upon which the board is expected to take action during the meeting. First, we have business services. I'll make a motion to approve notice of completion and release of retention to C1 Construction Corporation for the Emperor Elementary School interim housing project. Can I get a second? Second by Member Nolenberg. It's okay. All right. Okay. All in favor?
He's gonna get some discussion.
Right. Sorry. Okay. You're right. Okay. Let's have the discussion first. I'm just like, yay, let's go. Sorry. Yeah, I know. All right. Mr. Rodriguez, is there anything that you would like to add onto this?
No, I don't think so, but unless anybody has any questions about the project or the completion.
Anyone? Okay. Yeah, it looks pretty straightforward, along with all the other interim housing plans that we've had for our previous projects, correct?
Yes.
All right, okay. Let's wait for Member Conlon. We are in, yeah, we are in the middle of discussion of item 20.
Thank you.
So if there are no questions. Okay. Okay, Member Nolan?
Right now, we'll have no balance for Emperor for this project. So that if something else comes up,
This is just for interim housing.
okay. Understood.
Okay, very good. I think everyone's had a good enough time to see this, so without any further questions or discussions, all in favor? Aye. Aye. 5-0. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the next thing. All right, can I get a motion to approve change order number 1 to AJ Fistis Corporation for the Cloverly Elementary School modernization project in the amount of $29,850?
Second.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Member Marston and second by Member Nolbert. Okay, is there any questions out to this? Actually, this is just in addition to, as a contingency based on some of the, like the dry rot and some of those things that you guys found, right, basically?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. Member,
I just wanted to say thank you. It's impressive that we budgeted for 4 classrooms and only needed to use 1, and you brought this in 6 months ahead of schedule, so.
With the help of the site, I mean, they helped out a lot, trying to find alternate rooms for the students, so.
So I think it's a nice success story for the construction management and the site, and everybody that participated.
absolutely. Yeah, I will comment on that, yes, you know, they made a lot of adjustments to make this happen, so, yeah, thank you to all of you guys. Okay, any other questions or comments? No? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, 5-0, then that's it. Thank you very much, Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have educational services. I'll make a motion to approve the single plans for student achievement for all schools.
Second.
All right, second by Member Nolenberg. Any discussions or comments? Just on this the last time.
Just to capture what we're asking, Senate Bill 374 requires that each school submit a single plan for student achievement to our Board of Education annually for approval. And I'd like to thank our school site councils for their work in helping to develop these plans, these goals, and these action steps. And we know that the monies that are used are supplemental to help students improve in English and math, because we're still following the old NCLB for these plans. And so you will see many of the goals and action items related to English language arts performance, math performance, English language learners, because we also have Title III monies that are outlined in the plan. And you'll also see use of technology as an instructional strategy, and that helps support the academic side of the house. And you'll also see that Oak Avenue has called out character education, and we believe that having that whole child approach is going to help the academic side as well. And so those steps are aligned to the district's LCAP plans, and in this year's plans, you will see many of the sites have identified LCFF as a funding source, and it'll say LCFF supplemental. And you'll recall that that's for our targeted and duplicated students who are English learners, foster children, or low-income children. And so we bring the plans to you for approval, and again, we thank our school site council and our principals for their leadership.
Right, Member Nolenberg.
Just a clarification, for these plans, each of the plans that had dollars in it, that's automatically gonna be in the budget, right?
Correct.
And that, there was a couple of the plans where they had a percentage change where someone would improve. Does the percentage change make a difference if the total number of students goes up or down?
It's a slight change, yes.
Thank you very much. Member Palmer, did you have a?
Yeah, I just, I guess, my only question really would be that for each of the school sites, they went through the right procedures through their school site councils to approve these and present them to us.
Yes, sir, they did. They had them verified. You'll see the signatures on the signature page and the date that they were approved at the site level. And you will also note that they're being approved tonight. On the first page, it'll state that it was approved on February 24th, and that various people looked at this and gave input to the plans. The plans are also on file upstairs in Educational Services, so that should anybody in the public want to see them.
Very good. Well, I want to thank all of the staff members and parents and students at Oak and at the high school who participated in preparing these plans. I see Debbie Microvich in the back of the room, and I remember at the Longdon School Site Council working on this type of plan with you, Mrs. Microvich. So I'm glad we're still doing these. Yeah, I want to thank everyone involved. It's nice to see some new faces, and I see some very familiar names also in our plans. So thanks for everyone who participated.
Member Ritz?
Is there a deadline for when the board needs to approve these?
It's an annual update. Some districts take them to their board in September, others take them later in the spring. So there is no deadline, just as long as it's an annual update.
Reading these, they're very detailed, and there are a lot of action steps, and obviously a lot of thought and effort went into these. So I'm a little bit loath to criticize anything, but I must observe that in terms of the goals, the more of them do not specify any kind of measurement other than to increase. And I actually prefer to see something, in some cases they said we want 5% to show measurable improvement. And those to me seemed like better goals in that they were more specifically measurable. And so a number of the goals, while they're clearly stated and I think valuable, and I know a lot of work went into this, I think they would be more meaningful if they actually had some kind of measurement function that is currently lacking.
Duly noted, and I believe that as we progress with our SBAC, our CASP data, that we will be more in tune with that. Since this was a baseline year, I know people were hesitant to put a specific percentage of increase. But duly noted as we move forward, so thank you.
So I guess my suggestion might be to grant conditional approval that we'd like to see these come back with actual some kind of measurement. And I turn to staff, and I guess I would ask, is that meaningful and valuable? Or are these goals that simply state will increase in a category adequate?
Well, given that 2 years ago this week, I was sitting in Mr. Westgate's position, the plan is something a site administrator and staff take very seriously. So regardless of percentage, although you raise a valid point, we're held accountable because the families are counting on us to fulfill those. So in concept, it would be great to come back, but typically site administrators with the teams look at the plan and what we've accomplished, what we haven't. I would just caution us, it's a document that is comprehensive. It takes a lot of work on the part of the principal to start with, then going through the various groups, PTA, school site council. And of course, we'll do anything that you ask us to do. I don't know that that's the best use of an administrator's time, a teacher's time, a parent's time, when in actuality, typically what a principal will do is take it as a snapshot, and then as they lead their teams going forward, they look at this document, how did we do, did we address this, is this something that should stay, something we should take out? But I think asking them to come back with yet another document along with safety plans, the LCAP, and all the other layers of plans, I would just caution us
essence, if the goal is to increase a certain measurement, it's pass-fail kind of grade. And do we get a scorecard back on each of these?
Not really a scorecard, but I think the scorecard is along the lines of discussion, and as a school looks to where they are and where they're going, and if we got there, it really is on an individual basis. The one part typically, because this is annual, you somewhat get a report if you were to lay them side by side of what the changes were, what the improvements were, what the changes were from the prior year. Whether the target was met or wasn't. I know when I was doing it, if we didn't meet the target, we analyzed why we didn't meet the target, and then the target reappeared in the subsequent plan, so that you don't, it's just not like, well, it goes away, we didn't meet it, oh well. And the hard part now is too, we're not even sure what we're being measured on yet. So the schools that put the 5% in, they're very brave in doing so, and sometimes it's just, you put those numbers in with the hope of having that, but we don't even know what 5% means really when you tease it all away, because the SBAC isn't, there's nothing to compare it to. So, but we do challenge our site administration to look at what have you planned, and knowing it's an accountability document that, and that's why we're hoping that eventually a lot of this will go into one document, because there's still, we're working with multiple documents still, and it makes it very challenging for the site administration and the teaching teams to continue to, we better check the LCAP, we better check our school plan, we better check our safety plan, we better look at our Title I, we better look at our ELD. So it's, our hope is that we pull all those pieces together, but I know Kate works with the sites as well, and you know, and Bob can even chime in as he wants. As a principal, you take these documents very seriously. So. Just not a thought.
Have a motion?
You know, I've been on a site council for many years, and you know, hearing the conversation here tonight has kind of made me, you know, just start to click. You know, I see how much effort us as the site council members put into this single plan, but then, you know, it's given to us once it's pretty much done by the administrators. So I'm kind of curious, when do the administrators actually start working on this annually? And you know, how much has been actually done behind the scenes before you get to site council? And once it's there, you know, there's a lot of work done, a lot of discussion, and you know, we have it at home to read and study, and then take it back to the next meeting and you know, debate it, and modify it, and then it comes here. But maybe Mr. Westgate could tell us how much time do you spend working on the site plan before it even comes to site council?
Well, Dr. Franciscini and the site administrators start working usually during the summer and putting it together, and it takes several months worth of collecting data and entering data and putting things into it and rewriting and analyzing it. And there is some of it that is the same from year to year to year, but the data is supposed to be reinterpreted every single year. So the document that you get looks nice, and it's a nice thick packet when you look at it, but really that's several months worth of work that goes into, I know ours was like 89 pages or whatever it was when we finally finished it and printed it all out, you know, so it's a nice thick piece of work that we put into it.
And this is all on top of everything else you're supposed to do every day too, you know, so there's a lot of work that goes into this, and although I agree with Member Ridley, and it'd be nice to be able to quantify the results and that, but you know, how do you do it? I don't know, that's quite the question. You know, something we can debate, but you know, I certainly don't want to have to put any more additional work on the site's administration, because they're already very compassionate about what they produce and bring to the site council already.
All right, so, Member Palmer?
Okay, sorry, I'll try to be brief. So just so I understand, so a report of the results from the previous year's plan, it's not required that that's in the plan that we then approve the next year. Is that right?
Would you state that again?
I can
I'm
try.
not sure.
And the question was about, how were we, did we meet the goals from last year, and what's presented to us, these plans, we have to approve them, but I don't think the state requires that in that particular plan, that it includes a report looking backwards. Does that make sense?
It's built in, on page 7, you'll see something called description of barriers and related school goals, and that's the section where it captures why we didn't meet last year's goals or plans. And so, in addition to that, as Mr. Westgate spoke about, starting on page 3, we have a comprehensive needs assessment component, and that needs assessment is broken down into subcategories such as data analysis, surveys, analysis of instructional program. That's where the sites and the administrator is leading the school site council and the staff in understanding how they met the plan or what needs they have collectively as a school, and that informs writing of this year's goals.
Okay, thank you, and I just, I guess, observation that if, as far as the timing of when the plans, if we've been doing them at this time of year in the past, I don't know if the timing we get the new scores under the new testing might affect what timing might be good, but if the administration feels a different timing might be better, then, we'll leave that to you. But and finally, just say, it's sort of like a little laboratory of democracy, having the administrators and the staff and the parents and students. So I kind of appreciated it for that, just the fact that it was a little, sort of the process is almost the most important thing, and I trust that, discussions are had at that level, looking at the whole picture, and I'm glad that some of these decisions we don't have to make ourselves. And I finally thank for the 15th time everyone involved with these plans. Thank you. I'm going to turn this mic.
Stop talking. Very good. All right. Member Nolberg?
Just a general one, it's more of a comment. I just hope that we as a board understand that we have to adequately fund what's in this plan for it to succeed. So one of our jobs in the future is to make sure, for instance, there's a lot of comments in there about technology and we need to get information on how much that's going to really cost, and then make sure that we're supporting it at our level so that Bob and the rest of the principals don't have a problem of not having adequate funding to make this a reality.
Okay, all right. Well, you know what? I am just going to share my experience because I have done this for many years on the school site at La Rosa, and as a matter of fact, I worked with the previous principal on this, and frankly, and no disrespect, but the first year he gave me this, I threw it in the trash. Because I looked at the metric and I knew right away it was heavily skewed. I mean, without the API and the AYPOBs, call it the III number, but because really it was impossible. How are you going to hit that 100%? Ridiculous. Now, that being said, there is a lot of work that goes into it, but what I will share is that in the years that I've worked with La Rosa's former principal, Michael Lynn, he shared a lot of information with all of us. With me, I was very, very intuitively interested in what these numbers meant, and looking at all these different subgroups and demographics, coming up with some kind of plan to try and address some of these shortcomings. And you know what, honestly, we didn't find anything that's truly target specific, and I don't think you ever will. But what we did do was tap instead into what we felt the kids would connect to, and that was technology. So that was the first year that him and I collaborated, and we started building, and we started building, and we started building. I don't think we saw anything that first year. I don't know we saw that much in the second year, but I think we saw something in the third year. So I guess my comment there would be, these are progressive things, and I appreciate the site staff as well as the parents and the families who commit their time to do this, because it is a lot of stuff. I was overwhelmed the first time I saw it. Maybe that's why I threw it in the trash. No, but the second year I kept it, and the subsequent years. No, all kidding aside, I appreciate everyone's work for this. So thank you. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Okay, so are there any discussions, comments? No? Okay, all in favor? Aye, all right, 5-0. Okay, now, let's go. The next one,
23.
item 23, thank you. Okay, can I get a motion to ratify CSEA 105's new contract language for Article 4?
So moved.
All right, moved by member Nolberg, can I get a second? Second by member Marston. Any information on this you need to be aware of, overview?
That was it. Sorry. The reason this is coming to you later is the CSEA had to approve this as a whole unit, not 105 or 823 separately. They all had to approve this, otherwise it wouldn't go through. So we actually had done this previously, and this is where we equalize the pay for our members to avoid some of the issues that we have during our vacation periods where people are being docked pay because they're 180-day employees and whatnot. So I brought this as soon as we wrapped up negotiations with 823, so that 105 and 823 would be together. So the same contract language is in 823's agreement, which is in 24C, which you'll also be approving tonight. And that is it, unless you have any questions.
I think we're good. Any comments or questions? Nope. All right, okay. So all in favor? Aye. Okay, 5-0 on that. All right, move on to, okay, 24A. I'll make a motion to approve opening a public hearing to discuss CSEA 823 contract language changes for July 1st, 2015 through June 30th, 2016 pursuant to AB 1200. Can I get a second? Second by member Nolberg. Okay, so we are in a public hearing. Oh, sorry, we have to vote, you're right. Okay, all in favor? Aye, thank you for catching that. Okay, so now we're in public, we're in public hearing, okay. Any comments? No?
I make a motion, we close public hearing.
Okay, all right, member Nolberg makes a motion to close the public hearing to discuss CSEA 823's contract language changes.
Second.
Second by member Pomeroy. All in favor? Aye. Okay, 5-0. Okay, and I'll make a motion to approve CSEA 823's contract language changes for July 1st, 2015 through June 30th, 2016 pursuant to AB 1200. Second? Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by member Nollenberg. There are no discussions. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, 5-0. Very good. Okay, administration, item 25. I'll make a motion to approve the 2016-2017 Board of Education meeting calendar.
Second.
Second by member Nollenberg. Any questions or comments?
I have a comment.
Member Palmer.
It might be in the form of a suggestion. We have a motion to approve the calendar. The calendar, as is our custom, contains 2 meetings a month, most of the year, with certain exceptions. Well, I will say I did communicate to Superintendent Perini before tonight my thought that perhaps we could, instead of sort of the default being 2 meetings a month, that maybe the default could be less, fewer. Maybe it could be 1 meeting a month. I think in the months when we have 1 meeting, we tend to, get our business done. And I do think there's a movement among other school boards. We don't always follow them, but South Pasadena meets once a month. Now Pasadena meets once a month. There are certain things we have to approve at certain times of year. June is a good time to have 2 meetings, but I just wonder whether at other times, for example, next month in March, we have 2 regular meetings. We also have a study session, and I suggest that if we had fewer scheduled meetings, then there might be more room for study sessions. And in the past, we've had some study sessions on important topics, and we don't have a lot of public attendance. And so I think it might be easier for the public if we had more room to have study sessions and resulted in maybe fewer regular meetings. And I leave it open to the staff as to what thoughts they might have, and just personally for board members, for myself, I think also it might be easier to schedule fewer meetings. So I just throw that out there, and I would invite some discussion before we vote to approve the recommendation as it is.
All right, Member Rayleigh?
I guess, that's an interesting thought. My only initial reaction to that would be a reservation due to the thought that if we met once a month to conduct the district's business, we'd bump into our 10 o'clock deadline, and number of school boards, number of city councils go till midnight when they have a lot of business. And so I guess my initial reaction would be, I like the 2 meetings a month because it spreads the work out and gives staff an opportunity to come to us, because there are a number of deadline issues. But it's an interesting thought, because I do agree. I think there is value in us having more study sessions where we really, instead of getting a 10-minute presentation on a topic, we really get to get our arms around topics with more time devoted to them.
Member Morrison?
Well, I concur with, fewer meetings, but then, Mr. Ridley points out a very valid point that, we'd be going pretty late when we had those fewer meetings. Fewer meetings will help staff. I know Lynn spends a lot of time getting things ready just for the meetings, the binders and special reports. But, Mr. Ridley is correct. I think that, the meetings will go pretty late. Maybe we can do it every 3 weeks type of thing, cut it down some, but not to the point where it's so few that our meetings are gonna go very, very late on the time.
One thing I forgot to say was, I think we should give great credit where great credit is due. And, the number of things being brought to us today compared to in previous administration, I think is better. And I think there's been an effort to bring things to us when they need to, and not necessarily some other things. So overall, I think our meetings have been streamlined quite a bit, and that's to our superintendent's great credit. And I don't, I mean, if I had to get really specific, I might say, well, we pick out, a few months, maybe 2 or 3, where we expect, based on what's happening, that 2 meetings would be necessary. In this schedule, we've got 6 months where there are 2 meetings planned. So maybe we could cut that down to, say, 3 or 2, depending on whatever things have to be approved based on deadlines.
One suggestion might be to turn this to staff and ask them to return to us with kind of a report and a suggestion. I know at pretty much every meeting we take personnel action items, and if we met only once a month, I don't know if that would inhibit hiring. We also approve warrants and disbursement of funds and issuance of purchase orders. But again, if we did that only once a month, I don't know if that would inhibit the business activities of the district. So perhaps that would be the way for us to proceed, is to ask staff to come back with kind of the impacts and their thoughts on it.
My comment on that is that, and I think in some ways we've been kind of doing it in and out as far as the length of our meeting. Some of our meetings were significantly shorter in time frame than others, and I think again, great credit to staff for being able to find that nice spot for us. No, I like that idea. I mean, I think, once a month certainly is pretty good, but I also see everybody else's point of view about having items on the agenda, depending on what it needs to be. So, would you recommend that we then table this for the moment?
Well, I'm okay with approving the calendar. I mean, I guess the other observation I'll make is that probably 3 of the meetings, starting in March and May and June, we we almost need the 2 meetings a month because we're dealing with the budget. And in order for us to move forward with the budget and glean the necessary information, provide feedback to staff for them to move forward with it, we kind of need those ones. The September meeting, when we come back and they have 2 meetings, it's after having July and August that have only had 1 meeting. However, July and August, typically we pick up the superintendent's performance evaluation, and we often have a special meeting to work on that. So
We could forego that one.
yeah, maybe do the evaluation every other year.
Every 5 years.
Um, So I don't see a lot of opportunity to reduce the 2 meeting a months by much.
What about, in a sense, doing it, leaving it like it is, and then if the superintendent and the board agree that we don't need another meeting this month or next month, then we just cancel the meeting. We're better off scheduling the meetings and canceling them than trying to reschedule a meeting with the people here.
You have to be very careful doing that because it becomes a public plan. Another way to do it, and we're happy to come back with you, I think we can do the meetings. We're really are trying to control the agenda, so to speak. My goal still, when Vince and I talked about it, is to get us to consent by 8:30. Started a little bit late, we're a little off tonight. But in talking to a number of the other superintendents, because a number of us have talked about this for over a year, many of them have gone to the middle of the month to give variance on either end should you need a study session or another meeting. And then I just said to Marianne before Mr. Ridley's comments that some of the months we have to have them for budget. So we're happy to come back to you with a suggestion, and then you can decide at that time. Almost like what we do, a proposed calendar based on, because a lot of what we look at too is the overall governance calendar and what types of areas. But we've really been trying to do a good job of being concise, giving you agenda reports that are more thorough so that hopefully we're addressing anticipated questions. But we'll do whatever you'd like us to do, but we're happy to come back because as Mr. Pomeroy pointed out, many districts now have gone to 1 meeting, and it causes us too to be more concise and thorough in our presentations than at other times. But some months we do need the 2 meetings. But also leaving flexibility, you could leave it as just with kind of an underlying understanding that we don't do it this way, but we leave opportunities to have special meetings should we need to do that as well.
Yeah, and I guess my final thought, remind me that I said this was my final thought, okay? Is that, maybe January, February, March are times when we could have 1, and September, May, and June, good times to have 2 per month. And, again, looking at next month, and we have a study session now scheduled on a very important topic. And, I'd like to see members of the public here, and I'd like to see everyone of staff able to, really spend time on that. And last year, we had a study session on foreign language programs, and I think that it just feels like, I can't call myself a veteran, and every day I have more appreciation for these folks that have been doing this for a long time, what dedication it really requires. But at this time of year, to be able to have a study session maybe on topics that have come up, I think is valuable. And I know whenever we ask for it, the staff is very accommodating, and I just want to also make it easier for them.
One other final comment is that the one thing that I think everyone's aware of is tomorrow, typically the Thursday after a board meeting, we begin preparation for the next board meeting. Because the process, and I think everyone's aware, we start to prepare for the next meeting, the agenda's put together, we start the agenda reports. They have to come to me as I read through all the documents, and if there's anything we need to adjust, it goes back to staff and to the team in order for us to meet the timeline of getting them to each of you in a timely manner prior to that coming board meeting. So having a variance would allow us a bit more flexibility, although, as I said, we'll do as you wish. So, but we can come back with a proposal.
Member Marshall?
And we need to keep in mind that there's, can be some turnover in the superintendent's office. The administrative assistants are gonna be new, and, we may not even have one. I don't know what the process, what it's going so far as replacements, but, that's something we need to consider too, that their time, getting these reports ready is gonna be affected, by, new people in the office, so.
Okay.
I didn't say I have my final thought yet, right?
I think you're okay.
This is my final answer. Also, I think there's a little bit of overtime costs actually that we do incur with meetings with having certain staff here, and we don't have to go into all that, but just another small consideration. That was my PS.
Now, it sounds like maybe we want to table this item.
Motion we table.
All right. Okay.
We have to withdraw the previous motion.
How does that work?
You could withdraw your previous
Okay.
motion.
I would like to withdraw the motion to approve the 2016-2017 Board of Education meeting calendar. Can I get a second? Second by Member Marston. All in favor? Or do we have to do that? Yes. No, that's kind of odd. We're learning along the way.
Just make your motion.
We're doing it,
So, yeah, we didn't vote on it, so, and that's it, right? I don't need to do anything else. Okay, all right, onwards.
I'll make a motion that we table the item to our next regularly scheduled meeting.
Okay.
Second.
Second. Okay. Second by Member Nolver. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, we'll come back and do this again. Okay, let's go on to item 26, and that would be this. Okay.
I'll make a motion.
The 2016 California School Board Association Delegate Assembly election. Do we have candidates?
I have a motion, Mr. President.
Yes.
I have moved that we vote for Bob Bruce, Gregory Krikorian, and Gary Scott.
Okay. All right.
And the reason is I believe their presentations appear the most professional looking forward,
All right.
and they certainly seem qualified.
Excellent. Okay.
And, they have tenure on the,
And,
already, so I like that.
okay.
Their incumbents,
Very good.
two of them.
Okay. All right. If there are no comments or questions, sounds like we have our three candidates. Do we win say that name?
We just need, Mary Ann and I are the administrative assistants tonight, so
I
I
make
was,
a motion. Is there a second?
it came from John, but,
Mr. Ridley, second.
okay, thank you.
Very good. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. 5-0. All right. Okay, that is good. Okay, now, we are on to the consent agenda portion of our meeting. Routine items approved by one motion and one vote unless a member of the board or audience requests that any item be reviewed and voted upon separately. Anything?
I just have a comment on one of the items.
Okay. Member Baldwin?
Yeah, thank you. Before we vote, I just want to comment on the certificated personnel order, and Nancy Hong is listed there as to be appointed interim principal at Longdon, and I just want to wish her extraordinary success, and I think the world of her. And I thank our superintendent for arranging for her to be in that position.
Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, so, all right. Couple of questions, Member Ridley?
I can find them. The main one had to do with consultants.
Under the contract?
And the contracts, and, sorry, I'm speaking.
Number 83 to 99.
Number 83 to 99 lists a number of consultants, primarily for ed services for the site. I'm just curious if there's a general explanation, if these are all serving the same purpose or different purposes, us who they are and what they're gonna do for us.
Good question, I'm glad you asked that. 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, and 93 are all part of that supplemental educational support that we have to give to students because of program improvement. So these are the outside vendors that parents handpicked to work with their students. And it says consultant because I guess that's the term.
That's a good term. Okay, thank you. And then there was one other thing, I see we have a revised schedule. And I think there was a payroll item that didn't look quite right.
It was a utility bill that was labeled as payroll, there was a clerical error on my staff. If it happens in my department, it's my fault.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
You could blame Excel. I often have a problem with Excel.
Sorry?
You could blame Excel. I often have a problem with Excel.
Okay, all righty. Okay, so, without any further questions, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Second by Member Marston. He has this. I'll give it to him. Wait, this is roll call. isn't it? No, this is not. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Okay, 5-0. Okay, now, item 35, board comments, requests. Member Ridley.
Thank you. I have one. Earlier tonight during board member comments, we had a very brief report on the standing committee between the district and the council. And I'd like to suggest that that be an agendized item so that rather than getting a very brief comment from a board member that was in attendance or both board members that were in attendance, we actually would be able to discuss the matter and be in compliance with the Brown Act.
I would concur with that.
I would agree as well. Okay, that's a great suggestion. Thank you. Any other board member comments or requests? No? Okay. Okay, all right, so now let's go to, all right. I'll make a motion to adjourn our meeting at 9:27. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Member Nolenberg. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.